Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Organizing Untold. I'm your host, Sierra Hamilton, and today's episode, we have another guest here today. We have a special guest who's joining. But before we get into just being able to introduce her a little bit more, I did want to mention to all listeners and viewers that we have a couple of organizing resources available to you in the description box. So be sure to check that area out after or sometime in between while you're looking at the episode for those resources. And within that description box as well, you'll find our guest bio and then also ways to stay in contact with her and stay connected to her. So let's get into today's episode. So I am in the process now of doing a series of episodes with organizers, and we have a special guest who's another professional organizer who I have had the pleasure of meeting and have the pleasure of knowing. So, Alex, thank you for joining in as today's guest.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, you're welcome. And if you could just let us know who you are and what you do.
So, I am Alex. I am a wife, a mom, a small business owner, a professional organizer, and I have a small organizing business.
Thank you for taking the time to introduce yourself to us. And if you had to describe organizing, what would you say organizing looks like for you?
If I had to describe organizing, I would say it's passion and purpose. So, I would describe it as something that can be personable, just clearing spaces. There's a mindset approach to it as well. And then, just in general, just clearing your space, clearing your mind, and just making everything just that much more organized. It's a luxury thing to have once you get the hang of it.
Yeah,
And then, just maintaining it, making it work for what works for your day to day life.
love it, love it. And when it comes to organizing, how has that helped you get to where you are in your life?
Being organized has been amazing for me. I have a little bit of OCD. And I just, I'm just can be anal with certain things. So being organized, that just helps with that, because when things are in order, things are in place, then, makes your day flow a lot better. It also helps me with time management, because I can plan things. Things, like I said, they're in the right place. That's really big to me.
Yeah,
Right. So, having that is just another thing that just helps in terms of
yeah,
why.
definitely understandable. Understandable. And what makes you say that you have a little bit of OCD?
Outside of people telling me, um, I think it's just the small things, honestly. Like, if I walk into a space or I walk into my house and let's say my husband's been in there and he's gonna move everything, I can see it immediately without even knowing or physically seeing a person in the room. I
Yeah.
know because things are out of place. Um, it's not how I left it. So, outside of just, things being out of place, so it just irks me because I'm like, I know where that goes, or there's a label for that, or,
Yeah.
and I kind of learned that with my clients too, just teaching like them that it has to be implemented. So I think that's where the OCD comes in, but it's a. It works,
Yeah.
Um, I think that's where it comes
Gotcha. I got you. I got you. And speaking of just like knowing that that's your journey and knowing that it is a benefit, what led you into this journey of becoming a professional organizer? Where did that all start for you?
So when I was like growing up, I've always had like this very much creative side to me. My family would always joke that I was always trying to have like the best room in the house growing up. So I was always just making saying like, well, that's out of place because my room is organized. And, I was saying little things like that. And, growing up, I didn't see it as me being a, organizer and then later becoming a professional organizer. I really just saw it as just personality. I feel like a lot of things that I can relate to other professional organizers is very much your personality. It's just, it's a love of what you do. You're just naturally, you know, born to, be very organized. And then you just turn it into, what could be a hobby, and just turn it into a business. So that's kind of like what I did. It was a hobby of mine. I also do a lot of cleaning, so I thought that cleaning would be my, my niche, and I would just be able to start a business with that. I attempted that, and it worked for a little bit, but not as far as I went with, my professional organizing. I really, literally have turned a hobby into now a business. So,
Got it.
for that, also being creative.
Nice. So, being that you mentioned that cleaning is something that you thought was going to be your niche, and something that you thought and envisioned that you would be turning into a business for the long term, what would you say now that you're in this space of being an organizer longer than a cleaner? What would you say the difference is? Because I know for us as organizers, sometimes some people may think that organizing and cleaning is like all in one, and it's not entirely that way. So how would you kind of define that separation there?
I actually recently came up with this. My husband said you should promote that. I said that to organize, you don't need cleaning products.
Yeah.
So to organize a space, I can literally come in and tidy up a space and not pull out a single microfiber rag, bleach, any of my products, right? That's the difference. So to me, to clean, you're literally dusting, you're mopping, you're vacuuming. And although sometimes when you're organizing, you might move something that's been sitting there for a while, right? So I might say, okay, I need to probably vacuum this before I put things back. So that's like the touch of cleaning that comes into it, but they're very much very different.
Yeah.
Um, you can clean clutter, right? You can just tidy it up and just make it look neater, but you're not really solving the problem at hand. And that's where professional organizers come in, because we get rid of that clutter and we really dive deep to resolve the issues at hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love that separation. Thank you for sharing that for us. When it comes to organizing, so you mentioned that your business started off as more of a hobby that you turned into a business, and you talked about even in your childhood, talking about how your room was organized and in order. Do you feel like that's always been something that's been a part of you, or was there a certain time in your childhood that it just clicked and was like, all right, this is something that I need to incorporate in my life and be able to use?
I think it's something that's definitely always been a part of me. Growing up, my grandmother, she had her living room that was like completely off limits. Like, it was well decorated, it was perfectly organized, but you couldn't dare go in there. Um, so it made sense, because I always called it her IKEA room. Like, it's that showroom that showroom that always stay the same, and you're not allowed to be in there. And then the rest of the house might be like, okay, you can use some organizing down in this closet, but
Yeah.
uh, that immediate room when you walk in, that display space, has always been organized, and I feel like I adapted to that, and I now have that in my home as well. I have a space where I'm like, when you first walk in, don't go in there, leave it just the way it is. And then, like, life happens, though, and like me being a mom now, um, toddlers, toys, and clothes and shoes. It's all over the place, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's where organizing and implementing systems come in, because even though it might be messy in the moment, I know exactly where everything goes. So it's not going to be your IKEA showroom 24/7, but it can always get back to that by the end of the day, because you have the accurate and most realistic systems in place.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I do want to ask a couple questions related to you, just you being a mom and organizing. But I do want to touch on that IKEA showroom again. When it comes to that room, like when you have guests over, things like that, how do you maintain that space? Like, do you entertain them in different areas of the home, or is that a space that you just allow guests to go eventually go into, and then, like you said, coming back at the end of the day and just knowing that those systems are there to help you reorganize? What does that look like?
Yep. So that space is literally for guests. So
Okay.
it's not used on a regular. It's always in place, because it's a no zone, right? It's a
Yeah.
no go. But then when you have guests over, that is the place that you know for sure is 100% clean. 100%. That's what it's there for, right? So you
Yeah.
feel confident in the space because you're like, oh, this room is so beautiful. And then that's like, wow, the house is so amazing, right? And your converse, and they're not there long, right? The guests are probably just coming by for a little bit, having a quick chat, and they're leaving, right? So
Yeah.
it's like your perfect space. It's like the waiting room, your lobby, right? And then if guests are there longer, then you explore out of that space, and then you have them in other parts of your home. Like
Yeah.
my basement, we've turned into like our family room space. So 9 times out of 10, that's where we are. But at the same time, that upstairs space in the living room is like living room, dining room is more of, as guests come over and we're here for a few hours, so and that's about it.
Yeah.
And it goes
Okay.
right to the no goes
Understandable. Okay. I like that. It's like a segue room almost in a sense. Eventually, if the guests are there long enough, yeah, introduce them. It's the space where you're like you're getting their first impression of your home in a sense, and
Yeah,
then they're yeah
exactly.
they're going.
I recommend everybody to have one.
There you go. All listeners and viewers, you've got to have the IKEA showroom in your
one
house.
one I preferably close to the front door.
Yeah. So going back for a second to you being a mom and being a wife as well, what does that look like to just be an organizer, but not even an organizer, but being able to organize your home in ways that are going to help you function in those areas of your life?
I think it really just comes down to the experience. Being married and being a mom, or any parent, is already an experience. You're learning every single day. Every child has different personalities, and different things that they're in love with. Like I implement it in my business as well from experience. So I have clients where their children are highly into Legos. Like my daughter, at least right now, is not nowhere near Legos. Granted, she's only 2, but if that was the case, then I would know how to properly organize that because each child has different interests and things of that nature. So I think, like I said, just really just my experience while I'm home, just organizing from within, using different systems to see how they work for me, and then sharing that same experience to others so they can try to, bounce off ideas and then learn from my own experience as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that's so good. And even touching on the part of how you said different children have their own personalities, it's
Right.
almost like even you as a mom of a 2-year-old, it gives you that insight in a sense to how to organize later on down the line in your own home,
Yep.
just because you get to work with clients outside of the home as well. So that's a plus.
I tell my clients all the time, like, I'm here to provide a service, yes, but I'm also learning from every single client that I have ever worked with, and will meet, down the line. Like, it's always a learning experience. You have to remember they're opening their doors to welcome us into their homes, right? So we're coming in, and then you just might just see something that goes, "What is that?" And then they tell you, like, and then you're just like, "Oh, I could so use that," right? And it's just a long term, ongoing learning experience. And you just, like I said, it's always feels like you're bouncing ideas off of each other. And
Yeah.
then I just come with the professional organizing approach that helps resolve a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah. If we're not taking the opportunity to learn, I do feel like we're doing ourselves a disservice
Absolutely.
because in anything with life, learning is always going to be a part of the process. Our life's journey is a journey of learning and just experiencing new things, being able to explore different opportunities. So
Right.
it's definitely vital to just our everyday life. So thank you for touching
Right.
on that.
Yeah, I just love learning from my clients. Like, I love learning different ways of doing things. And, like, every house is different, right? So the things that you have at home, your client might have 3 times the size of that, right? But then it's like, you get ideas. And then even when you work with other clients, you could say, hey, my other client had this, and maybe you should try this. And just like that, you've already solved an issue without really having to dive deep and do a ton of research. Although the internet has a lot of things, I really feel like the best way to learn is through experience.
Yes, agreed, agreed. So let's touch on some of those organizing tips and systems that you mentioned. So, how have you decided out of all of the systems and tips that you have, one used in your own home and then also received from others? How have you decided which ones you want to keep and which ones don't serve you at all?
I keep them all actually. I keep them all
Okay.
in the mind because what might not work for me might work for someone else.
Yeah.
So every every organizing tip that I have, I keep it in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Or I keep my portfolio where I can say, oh yeah, that was how we resolved that issue. Here it
Yeah.
is again. I have an answer for it. Almost like an organizing reference book.
Yeah.
um, and then like in my own home, I still do that major like spring cleaning and that major those decluttering sessions, even spaces where I know that I did it just 6 months ago. And then I
Yeah.
said, all right, I actually haven't used this in the past 3 months, even though 6 months ago I said I would. So maybe now it's time to let it go. And I always love the option of donating because I always say, although we might give it to some donation company and they're reselling it to somebody else, either way somebody could have used it and benefited it, whether by me exiting it out of my home. So that's that donation is really big to me, just to the point where now we're just telling clients like, hey, we'll take it, because even my clients and my employees sometimes they'll say, um oh, I could use those shoes, or oh, I need that. Just
Yeah.
that small action, and that makes clients happy, believe it or not, too, because they
Yeah.
see the benefit of letting it go, and it makes another person happy, so they're more willing to donate. So, one of the biggest tips is always just being willing to donate. And
Hmm.
then another trick that I just started implementing is there's going to be a bin called the later bin, right? So you have your donate, your keep, your trash, and then your I don't know, maybe bin.
Yeah.
That bin, while you're going through your different spaces in your house, you just fill it. You're like, I don't know if I really want this or not, but I'm just going to hold on to it for now, right? Then when I say when you get to your final space, that last room, that last section, that last closet that needs to be organized, you have that bin right beside you. And at that point, you have to make a decision whether it's donate, keep, or trash, because it helps you not overcrowd your brain
Yeah.
while trying to make those decisions. And then you later down the line feel like you got rid of something you didn't really want to.
Yeah.
Um, and then it just helps make a already can be overwhelming situation just a little bit less overwhelming.
That's smart. That's super smart. It's delaying the decision making process, but eventually they have to make that decision. So it's like delaying it with enough time, almost in a sense, to empower you to be able to make that decision later on.
Right. And then when you look back at your spaces that are already organized, you might say, "Oh, I was going to put that back in my room." Once you see that organized room now, you're going to say, "I don't want anything else in here." And then you just by giving yourself a little bit more time, you can make a confident decision, and I no longer want this. It's okay to donate it.
Yeah.
And approach has been helping a ton of clients and even myself, like just implementing that in my own life, helping family implementing in their lives. It's really working.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your name. How did you come up with the name Cozy Home Studios for your business?
Well, I weirdly enough, I always like for cozy. I just felt like it's like I'm a warm light, warm candle, fall type of person. I'm a September baby, so I like when everything's just right, and I feel like that's cozy. I like getting my nice Sherpa blankets or my cashmere blankets and laying on the couch watching those nice movies and Netflix series, and I just feel like that's just such a warm, inviting, um, family oriented time. And I just say that, like, if I can, like, even with my designing, like, if I could just make my home roomy and warm and cozy, that's just always been my go to. Like, even with my color choices, it's always just been surrounded by that. So I'm like, I'm always trying to create a cozy home, like, just
Yeah.
cozy. And then studios is because I envision having like an actual studio space, in the future. And it would just be, like literally like I look at it like a corporate office kind of view. And you have like your front, and then you have your different, patterns or whatever it is, different paint ideas. I just envision it like being like this whole studio space that you can come in and just get a, get a vision of what your space can look like, and then organizing materials and my own little container store within, sort of thing. So that's how I came up with the name. It was more of just like my interest, what I love, and then my vision all put in one.
Love it. That's so smart. That's so good, and can't wait to see the studios portion come to fruition.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
just be present. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, when it comes to organizing tips and systems within your life, we talked about what it looks like to organize as a mom and as a wife, and also as a professional organizer, organizing for your clients as well. Are there any other areas where you feel like organizing plays a part and plays a huge role to help you live on a day to day basis?
Yeah, definitely organizing your schedules. Like I said, time management is really big for me. Something as simple, just adding labels, places, just simplifies and cuts down on your time. And then with your schedules, like planning ahead. I know a lot of people on their day to day, they don't plan ahead. My brother is one, and he always says, I don't know what I'm going to be doing next Thursday. And it's like, I get it, but
Yeah.
you could just mark it as I'm free next Thursday versus I
Yep.
don't know what I'll be doing. So
Yep.
just being able to just organize at least like 2 weeks in advance. A month is always a goal. Just take your monthly calendar, like take advantage of being able to see the full month. And then literally just writing days where you're just like, I have nothing planned this day. I'm just gonna make this a me day. Just call it a me day. I wish I had every day as a me day, but that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say just, in terms of the organizing your management, organizing your time, organizing your schedule is another super big tip that I could provide.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking even to taking a full month of organizing, I know on my Instagram page, usually we do a weekly challenge, and that was actually a challenge that you took on of taking the time to organize your monthly schedule. And from there, you had the opportunity to be able to go back in and know where you could place more events, place more plans because that schedule was already in place. So I definitely agree with that just from reading your experience of organizing that full month in general and being able to go back in and plan things in additionally. I would definitely, yeah, say that it changes things. So
It's a major game changer.
yeah, yeah,
Major.
agree, agree. For me as well, in my plans as well.
I just like, just knowing what's next. I mean, life is unpredictable.
Mm,
That's a given. But whatever little bit of planning you can do, it makes a huge difference in terms of everything. Like you said, where you can fit things in without feeling like you're scrambling trying to make something work. You can just give yourself a little bit more mental break by just planning.
agreed. And then something I do also want to just like touch on and just ask, how do you feel like you, even when it comes to like planning in these ways, how do you feel like you still extend grace to yourself when things do go awry, maybe, or when things don't go as planned? How do you feel like you extend grace to yourself when something that you had planned doesn't actually work out that way?
I outside of just accepting that, like I said, life's unpredictable. So outside of just accepting that, although I'm planning it, like there's very little things that are in your control. Things just happen. Accidents happen, just life happens, right? So I just extend my grace by saying, like, I did the good thing by at least planning this out. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. Like I said, setting aside those me days gives you that time to just mentally just take a break from things. I really think that at least once a week on everyone's schedule, we should have just that. If it's not a full day, but at least a couple hours where you just set aside to just do nothing, like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
nothing at all. And like even if you decide, like this past week, and I set time aside to literally do nothing. And then I went outside and I was like, the weather is amazing out here today. So, oh, we're doing something, you know? So I took my daughter to the park, and it's just like, again, because I set that time aside, I felt more confident, and I felt it was more easier to just plan what I was doing for that day versus saying, oh no, I only have this window between this window, because now I'm playing 5 things when I could have stretched it out a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, it's okay. But just setting that time aside makes sense.
Yes, yes. Makes all the world of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, when it comes to organizing tips, what would you say is one that you would really recommend our listeners and viewers take into account and just implement into their own lives if you had to choose just one?
Just one.
Mhm.
Probably that maybe bin. That
Yeah.
and maybe bin. That's probably the one that I would just tell everybody, because organizing can be overwhelming. Decluttering can be overwhelming. You come across things you haven't seen, touched in probably years, right? That alone, memories start to come back, and certain experience start to come back. So just taking it step by step, and then just like I said, if you can't make a decision right then and then, it's okay. Just make that maybe then and get back to it in the end.
Yeah.
That's probably my best suggestion. I mean, there's many, but if I had to choose one.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would definitely choose that one.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for taking the time to join and for choosing to be a guest on today's podcast episode. Greatly appreciate it. Always enjoy talking with you. So we know that this was just a natural thing to bring about. So um, thank you. And for people who want to stay connected with you and your journey, how can they do that? What are some ways they can stay connected?
Best way to reach me is via my website, so www.cozyhomestudios.com. You also can reach me via Instagram, which is also Cozy Home Studios, and then on Facebook for Reach Cozy Home.
Love it. And as mentioned at the beginning of today's episode, we'll be sure to include those in the description box for everyone to have access to that as well. Thank you again, and looking forward to keeping the conversation going and staying connected, and also seeing the impact that you make as a professional organizer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you for having me. And this is just the beginning. There's many
Yes,
more.
agreed, agreed. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Organizing Untold. Again, our guest for today was Alex. She's the founder of Cozy Home Studios, a professional organizer, a wife, a mom, and so much more. So we hope you enjoyed today's episode. And as we mentioned in the description box, you'll be able to read her bio and find all of the contact information for staying connected with her and her journey going forward. So make sure you do that if you feel that you are interested in staying connected with her. As mentioned, we'll be having a series of professional organizers who will be bringing on to the podcast for the next few episodes. So stay tuned as we bring on more professional organizers and get their insight and their take on organizing as a professional organizer and also just as part of their organizing journey overall. As we have shared in other episodes as well, Organizing Untold is here to help busy business owners and those who work 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. become confident with organizing. And we do that by bringing on guests who already feel confident in this area of their journey. And they get to share their experience and allow you to get insight into how you can become more confident as well in your own journey. And Organizing Untold is a segment of Nicely Placed Organizing, which is here to help first time homebuyers, executives, and full-time artists with art studios and workspaces become more organized by clearing clutter that's overwhelming them, ensuring that they meet deadlines without compromising their work, and also help them to be able to get out of the house on time. So if you or someone you know of is falling within one of these categories, or maybe more than one, reach out to us at nicelyplacedorganizing.com. Click over to the contact tab and fill out that form for us. We'd love to get in contact with you once we've received your information and be able to take the next steps to get you organized where you want to be. So, thank you again for tuning in to today's episode, and we look forward to talking with you more soon.